Okay, now we come to the thing that makes the AQA programming paper interesting, which is the skeleton code challenges. So this is the developers, the real developers' way of thinking about programming, which is that you have a real code base, it's already been written, and your question is, can you use it and apply your programming skills at a higher level? So we need to make sure we know the specifications of this program. Forward takes us forward by some number of steps. Left turns us, but doesn't move us forward. Right turns us, doesn't move us forward. And we have this way of checking ahead. So all we're asked to do is execute this program. So let's go forward 2. Turn left, that doesn't actually take us anywhere. Go forward 1. Turn right, that doesn't actually take us there. Go forward 1. And we get 3 marks for that, and that is by far the easiest 3 marks on the paper so far. Okay, so now we have to read a more complicated program. So we need to do what we always do when confronted with code that somebody else has written. Try and work out where the blocks are. So there's 2 blocks nested inside each other, a decision within a loop. And the loop is interesting because it only executes if we are blocked. Now, that's interesting. My instinct when I first read this question was that this would actually be something we do if we're not blocked, but that's not true. We're only going to do this as a workaround to a blocked. And that makes kind of sense because a lot of this behavior is about turning left and right to try and get ourselves free. So let's walk through it then. So while object ahead is true, well, yes, there is an object ahead actually. It's this thing here. So while object ahead is true, well, first we're going to turn left. Now we're looking left, but we're not going anywhere. And then if there's an object still ahead of us, well, there isn't an object still ahead of us, so we're going to go forwards. Okay, now we're going to check again. Is there something blocking us? Well, yes, there is, in which case I'm going to turn left. But now I'm looking down. That's not helpful. So it's telling me turn right and turn right again. Well, that's 180 degrees. It's going to bring me out facing this way. And then I'm going to take my forward step. I'm going to come here. While object ahead is true, well, there isn't an object ahead of me anymore. And so I escape the while loop and I come to the very last line of the program, which is forwards by 1, and I take one final step. Now, I would argue that that behavior was actually in some ways quite unexpected. There's all sorts of weird things that have happened there, and it really did test our tracing. So these are the kind of questions that skeleton code allow you to play with. You see that they've got a lot in common with the tracing programs, and depending on the order of the videos that you're watching this in, you may have already come up against the trace table, or this may be your first introduction to tracing. And this is probably the nicer introduction to tracing. It's intuitive, and we can walk through this program without needing to tabulate every single variable or value. This is just a robot wandering through a maze. So the last thing we are going to look at in these videos is how you use a mark scheme, and we're going to go back and we're going to mark all the questions that we've done so far.